Welcome back to the Stick 'em Up podcast. Brundy, right off the top, right here, I'm gonna jump scare you with it with a big old question. Do you think the NHL should make a rule banning goalie fights?
Um, no, I don't think they should. Is that probably a unwritten rule amongst all league officials? I think it is. I think
So
is a good way of putting it.
yeah, so for anyone who didn't see the context behind that question, the other day between the Boston Bruins and the LA Kings, uh, Darcy Kemper and Jeremy Swayman met at center ice, and these guys were both ready to throw down. Gloves were off, helmets were off. They were ready to go, and the refs stepped in and would not let them fight. Now, the reason for this that at least seems like what the league is going with in this instance is you're not allowed to take your helmet off and then fight in hockey, right? That used to be a thing, and I don't know, a decade ago, maybe more at this point, they made it so you can't take your helmet off before the fight. It's a concussion risk, and but obviously, goalie helmets are way different. They're designed to stop vulcanized rubber at 100 miles an hour. So they're a lot harder than the regular helmets for falling down. So you can't punch those. So at this,
Especially as well, it's not like players that have a visor where you can still tag them on the chin or maybe
yeah, you can
get
go
them in the
around it
nose
as
like a
well.
goalie. You're just punching at a helmet in a hard cage the whole time. Like
Yeah, and even if you're an insane fighter and you decide, fuck it, I can't go for the head, I want to go for a body shot. Good luck punching through goalie armor. Like
yeah,
it's there's just no other option for it. So that's what the league's kind of going for right now in why they've been stopping so many. I I wonder if it's genuinely just that and they want to be consistent with that rule, or if it's more of a owners want to protect their goalie, their investment, because like a goalie goes down like that can tank a season easily. Like
yeah.
it that can be brutal. So
I think it's a little bit of both. Right? Because I
yeah,
believe that well, obviously we know that, the rule of if you can't take your helmet off. I believe if you take your helmet off, it's a rule now that automatic game misconduct. So you're, out of the game. Same as if you're the one to instigate a fight. You get that extra 2 minutes and you get the game misconduct.
right.
Um so I mean like yeah, if goalies are gonna fight their match, you're gonna take their helmets off. And so I imagine it's more of a protect the goalie thing because it's as simple as if goalies fight and they pull their helmets off, it's all right. You're both out of the game, and now it's the backups come in. Um,
Which honestly, I wouldn't be incredibly against.
yeah, no,
If
I think that's the way it should be. Like the goalie can't go and sit in the penalty box. They can't
it would
just
be
go sit
funny.
on the
It's a
bench
funny
and
visual.
wait for 5 minutes and come back in. It's like if you're a goalie and you and the other goalie scrapping a fight, it's just as simple as you're both out of the game. Backups come in. No teams that worse off for it. It's not like you know why does our goalie get shown the door and buddy
And
over
the
here
other one
gets the
stays
stain.
or
It's just
something.
as simple as if goalies fight, both out of the game. And but again, I think it is a big part of it. Probably just to protect the goalies more than anything. And you don't want those guys throwing haymakers and they both got their helmets off. And goalies probably go down a little bit harder than players given all the extra equipment and padding and
They're probably going harder in fights, to be honest. Like, if you're a goalie, you're thinking like this is like a once in a lifetime thing. Like, this does not, unless you're one of those guys who does it often, which often is like every second or third season, usually for a goalie fighter. Like, it doesn't happen much. So, like, they're probably given everything they have to that fight compared to a guy who, I went in a little late on that hit, and now I gotta stand up for it.
yeah,
So
like if you're a goalie, you go out there and fight and you win the fight, you probably end up retiring, 1-0 in your fighting career. So yeah,
yeah,
they probably do tend to go a little bit harder. We don't really know because it just keeps getting ripped away from us anytime there's a possibility of that happening. But
I just really want them to make take a stand on it a bit more, just using the excuse of they take their helmets off, we break it up, that just blue balls the crowd. Like that's just so lame. It's just a bad look.
Yeah.
Like if you really, really don't want it that bad, just say goalies aren't allowed to fight. And I don't really want that. But I mean, if we're not going to see them fight anyway, it's better to just outlaw it outright than leave it as that thing hanging there that, oh, it could happen, and then every time it almost does, it just doesn't. That's weird. So I'd like
Well,
I'd like to find some
ask
sort
you
of way it
this.
could happen without it, being a whole
Yeah.
thing.
Well, I'll ask you this about it because, between Boston and LA, like, do I care who wins? No, it doesn't matter to me. But people are bringing up, like people online were pushing a narrative, and I wanted to see what you thought about it. And it was because LA was winning 3-2 at the time of when this almost goalie fight happened, and then it didn't. And then LA goes on to end up winning 7-2. They end up potting 4 more goals by Swayman. And I wonder if, like, you're a goalie, you're seeing all this go down, you kind of get a little pissed off and you want to fight, and then you can't. Probably kind of rattles you a bit and gets in your head, and it almost makes you wonder if the refs actively hurt Boston a bit by stopping it. It kind of gets the goalies off their game. Like, they would have been better off.
I see the argument.
They would have just been better off letting them throw hands. You toss them both, and you just get 2 new, fresh, clear-headed goalies into the game now that are going out there, and they're just playing now because they don't, they don't want an e-bug coming in, type of thing. So, like, I do kind of wonder if, like, maybe it hurt Boston a bit.
I don't doubt it. I mean, you play so, like, to get to the NHL, you have to play and practice so much hockey. These players, they're thinking about, probably think all the time, when am I going to have to fight? If I fight, how do I do it? We see videos of guys training how to fight in the off season with their teammates.
Yeah.
And these goalies, they either rarely or never think about that. So when it comes to a time where it's all of a sudden like, I'm thinking I'm ready for a throwdown, and then you look across the ice and the other guy's giving you eyes saying I'm ready to do it, and you're both skating out. They're like, dude, you're like, your ass is cashing the check that, like, you never thought you'd have. And to be walking in, you're ready. You've left the crease. There's no turning back now. You're going to be a clown if you do. People are going to let you have it. Like, you're full in, balls deep, committing to this.
And, like, you got to be fired up for a goalie.
And you got to be fight. They're both so gassed up. And then the refs just take that. That's got to be deflating as hell for both goalies. Like,
to get blue balled like that so hard when the adrenaline is just pumping, you're just seeing red, you want to go, and then it's like, nope, go back to your crease and keep playing. Like, that's,
like, I'm imagining if they canceled a UFC fight after both guys got to the octagon, they're just like, oh, we realized there was somebody filed the paperwork wrong. We can't, the insurance company won't let us do it. And let's just go home. Like,
yeah.
Like,
yeah,
what?
Yeah, exactly.
No. Like, it's so weird. Like, it's obviously not that degree, but it's like, yeah, it does suck. And I get the whole helmet thing, but
just let them go. Just let them go. Like,
yeah.
Like, if you need to, if there's a goalie fight, just have both linesmen, like, right there ready to catch either one. Have the refs there.
I was going to say,
backup. Like, just everyone, all players go around and just, like,
a linesman on either goalie.
Go make a circle around them.
Like, there's linesmen on both blue lines, right? So when the goalie on your side crosses the blue line, you go behind him. The guy on the other side does the same. If they fall backwards, you're there to help catch them. A goalie is by far the least likely player to hit his head on the ice when he falls anyway, because, like, those chest protectors, like, you're basically wearing a breastplate made of Kevlar. Like, your head can barely reach the ice unless you're, like, getting pile drove head first in.
Yeah.
So, like, if you also have the refs there, like, that's not really an issue. It's really just the punching, which for any fight, if it starts going brutal, you can jump in there.
It blows my mind that and we've seen it happen numerous times. It happened a couple games ago. I can't remember who it was, but we can see goalies throw blocker shots at players' heads with just a big, solid, heavy blocker.
Yeah,
And that's
Shesterkin did it to
fine.
somebody, I think. I think it was some meathead, so nobody really
You
cared
know
that
what?
much.
Yeah, it
Oh,
might
it
have been
was
Shesterkin.
was it Brady Tkachuk? I think he threw it at Brady
I'm not
Tkachuk.
sure.
And then I think he
Might have
missed,
been.
and Brady Tkachuk actually caught him once, if I'm not
But it's
mistaken.
like it's so wild that goalies can throw their blocker at players, but goalies can't fight each other. Like goalies can. The refs are basically saying like goalies get the green light to do shit like this, but they don't have to answer the bell for stuff like.
Yeah, because no shot they're allowing players and goalies to fight. This is the only chance they have with other goalies.
Yeah.
I I think back, and I can't remember specifically who was in the fight. I want to say it was against a Rangers player, and it was the Calgary player. I think it was Lomberg beat the crap out of somebody earlier this season along the boards, and he just like caught the guy bent over in a bad position, and he just like fed him like 7 vicious ass uppercuts right to his
Yeah.
face. I
Just
think it like
nonstop. Broke his jaw.
broke or dislocated his jaw, and
Broke
I'm
his
just
jaw,
thinking
yeah.
like I'm trying to imagine the worst case scenario for a goalie fight, and it doesn't look that bad.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah, no, it really doesn't.
a regular hockey fight, guys are getting fucking pummeled. Like the just let the goalies have this, man.
It's also, and again, like we said, you know, there is that rule of you can't take your helmet off, but basically every fight that happens between players, someone's helmet gets punched off.
Yeah.
And
Guys
they
are
don't
getting
immediately
better at
stop it. It's like if you get your helmet punched off, it's fine, but if you take it off, oh, that's like bad. Can't do that.
Do you
Disallowed. It's
remember
like, what?
do you remember, I believe it was a couple games into the first season where they made it so it was a rule you couldn't take your own helmet off. It was like maybe 10 games in, and guys were not used to it. And you know, guys would go, they'd have a fight, they'd take their helmets off, and then they'd both get, 5 minutes and extra penalties, whether it's a misconduct or an extra 2 or whatever. And everyone was like, what? And they were trying to figure out the rules. And I don't remember what teams or players, but there was one fight where these guys drop it. They're like, they don't grab each other. They were doing the like circle each other boxer style fight. And then they both just calmly went in and flicked each other's helmets off. And then they had their fight. They just had the gentleman's agreement of like, you take my helmet, I take yours, we avoid the penalties, and then we'll beat the shit out of each other. And
Yeah, I remember that very, very clearly. I can't. I want to say it was Ryan Reeves and Matt Martin, but I'm not too sure.
I wouldn't put it past either of those two guys. I wonder, do you think the refs would step in a goalie fight if goalies did that nowadays? It would probably look so much funnier because they'd have to like grab the cage and like pull it off because like goalie helmets are different. But like, I wonder if they'd let them fight if they did it that way. Now that they've kind of dug in on it's the helmet issue that's the problem.
Yeah.
I'd love to see what they do, but who knows if we'll see that. We don't see a lot of goalie fights getting started nowadays.
Yeah, no, like the last 2 or 3 that we've seen that would have the potential of the rest stop it immediately. And they're like, no, it's not happening. So
yeah,
there's like the way it's looking, there's a very good chance we don't get it anymore. We don't get to see another goalie fight because the refs and linesmen seem pretty adamant to make sure that it doesn't happen.
Yeah. I doubt it would happen. Not a lot of teams have the goalie depth to risk it. If 2 goalies were insane enough to go for a fight in the playoffs, do you think the refs let it happen?
No.
You don't think they even let them go in the playoffs?
No. I don't. If the rule is you can't if you can't take the helmet off, if that's the reason for stopping it, they're not going to bend that for the playoffs.
But they bend so many other rules for the playoffs. There's plenty of things that should be penalties that don't get called throughout those games.
but that's a little bit different when like, calling stuff on the ice like during the middle of play versus something like you could actively see happening right in front of you type of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I see it.
I would be curious.
I would like to see
a scenario happen and see like, do they let him go or do they,
or even if the refs are flustered and confused, scrambling to figure it out.
Yeah.
But
I think if you're a goalie and you want to fight, you just got to act fast. You got to wait till there's a big ass scrum, and then you just got to like just go as fast as you can to center ice.
And you know what? That's when a lot of the recent ones have happened. 5 guys on both team in one corner, and they're all in there. The other goalie's at center ice. The refs don't realize it, and then the goalie kind of picks his moment, flies the zone, and then he gets out there before once the guys are locked up, like they're going, like the
Yeah,
refs aren't there in time.
no stopping at that point.
Yeah, but
It's very shitty for the refs to stop it. I get it, player safety, but
yeah,
let the goalies fight. If they want to fight, let them
Yeah.
throw down. Let them throw.
yeah. But you will absolutely hear us talk about it the next time a goalie fight does happen. Hopefully, we really hope there's a next time and that all of a sudden they don't
Hopefully.
just disappear forever. But we will absolutely cover the next one that happens on this podcast. But with that being said, I guess we can get to our next topic. Which let's talk about a guy in his own right who is a very prolific fighter, Pat Maroon, who announced that he will be retiring at the end of this season.
Yep.
Yeah, he announced it a little bit earlier than some guys do, also a bit later than some guys like Fleury.
Well,
I think
he
did.
announced it in St. Louis, so he wanted to kind of make it
Okay.
known, like,
Okay.
hey, this is my, being a St. Louis boy, this is the last time I'm playing in this barn, and
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
had family and friends in attendance, so it was like kind of the perfect way to be like, yeah, this
Oh,
is
100%.
this is it for me. And he was
And
named first star, which was pretty classy.
yeah,
By, whoever the fuck picks it, I don't know.
yeah, that was a nice touch by the Blues organization, and they're definitely one of those orgs that really takes care of their guys. And yeah, I mean he's a St. Louis guy. He
He threw down in a fight as well in that game as well.
Yeah, he had a fight. He's won a cup there. He played there forever. His family's there. Like I know he also comes back in a lot of the off seasons and would often train with the facilities in Tampa, even when he was a free agent. So he's one of those guys that really seems just like he just loves the sport. And
Loves the game.
I wonder if he'll fully go away from it or if he's gonna, be a consultant or a, agent, whatever, for the rest of his career if he's gonna
Yeah,
do something like that.
like a
If he
strength and
does,
conditioning coach, maybe.
yeah, I wouldn't doubt that either. If he
Something along
does,
those
I
lines.
imagine it'll be either in Tampa or St. Louis. But
I would imagine one of the two. Yeah. I mean, maybe
it's
Chicago. Like, I don't want to rule that out because he's been there for. Is this his first year there or second year?
I think it's his second year there. I can double
But
check that.
he got the player of the game honors within the Blackhawks locker room. The other day was he was just talking about
First year
watching
there.
the young guys on the team develop and the bright future ahead for the Blackhawks franchise. So I wonder if maybe they want to keep him around there and be like, hey, even though you're not a player, we still want you around the facility around these young guys. We want them to still learn from you. And
Yeah,
if I had to
I
guess,
could definitely
if
see
he
it.
does stick around within hockey in some sort, probably one of those three teams that we've mentioned.
Yeah, I would definitely guess one of those first. And yeah, great great career. He's still got about 10 more games. But you know what?
Only active player in the league, 3 cups in a row.
Yep, the one man dynasty. Absolute legend. The
But
reverse
congrats, Pat
Corey
Maroon,
Perry.
on a great career. And we'll see what's next for him down the line.
Yep. But moving on from there, do you have either of these that you wanna cover? You wanna pick next?
Let's do the Crosby. Let's just talk about Sid while
Let's
we're on
talk
the
about him.
topic of some good veterans. This one was pretty surprising when I read this one actually. But Sidney Crosby on what is a bad Pittsburgh team. It is not a good Pittsburgh Penguins team this year. At 37 years old, he is tied for the NHL lead in 5v5 points. So that doesn't mean even strength points. It's just points when it's 5-on-5. At 51, tied with Leon Draisaitl, and we know Draisaitl is still out injured. So Crosby gets, in the next game, if he gets a 5-on-5 point, he's the sole leader, which I think is incredible.
Yeah. Yeah,
Like,
it's
that's
absolutely
really just
insane.
impressive.
At 37 years old on a team that is, like you said, like not quite bottom of the standings, but minus 48 goal differential on the season. I'll
Yeah,
let you draw your own conclusions on that.
it's incredible watching him and Ovi still at their ages, like It's like they're getting younger. It's like they're turning back the clock the way that they're playing.
Yeah. Yeah. There's like, I really did expect that they wouldn't decline very hard, like a lot of people predicted. But once I saw Ovi last year for the first half, I was like, oh, this guy's done, man. Like, and then he scored at an insane rate in the back half of the season after the trade deadline. I was like, all right, he had his big break, but he's done now. Like, he's not that guy. I believe one of my predictions for before the season was Ovi doesn't hit 20 goals. And
Yeah, I think it was.
like, how many did he have by the end of November? It was probably pretty close to 20. Like,
Yeah, he might have actually hit him by then.
yeah. And if not, it was probably because part of November, I believe, is when he got injured. Might have been December, but either way, like, both of those guys are absolutely killing it. And Crosby, I not sure if there's really a good way that I could check how many games he's missed this season.
Crosby?
But yeah. I guess he's got
I can check here.
He's got 70 games played.
Missed 2. So he's missed 2.
He's missed 2. So
78 points in 70 games, which I believe
78. He's got 78, and the max he can play is 80, which means 2 more points, and he will have the most point per game seasons in NHL history.
Yeah. And I believe he also just passed, I think it was Gretzky, for most points with one franchise.
Oh, yes, it was.
Which is pretty nuts considering like Gretzky didn't actually play like that long with Edmonton.
Well, how long was it? 8? I think it was it 8 seasons? Was it 10?
I think you're right.
Like, that's
1,
my
2,
God.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 4 cups in those 9 years.
9 years? How many points do you have in those?
Oh, I have no idea.
Like,
there's a couple 200. There's 5 200 plus point seasons, or 4.
Yeah, he had like 960, like 940 points or something like that in 4 seasons. Or I guess it'd be 840-ish. Like,
and the only year he didn't have a point per game season was his final year with the Rangers. Rangers ruin everything, huh?
Yeah, they get around. Just taking a look at who he has left to pass to be the all-time guy with one team.
I think he's still behind. I think he's 4th on the list. I know he's got to be behind Gordie Howe.
Yeah, he's 4th.
Steve Yzerman. I'm trying to think of who the 3rd would be.
Yes, he sole possession of 4th place, passing Wayne Gretzky.
Lemieux.
I'm pretty sure he's just behind Lemieux. I believe Lemieux's next. Yes.
And then
Crosby has 1,674, and Lemieux has 1,723. I would like to continue
Crosby
without
doesn't
ads.
Get moved, he'll pass. Lemieux next season.
He'll pass him next season, and also Yzerman with 1,755 with the Red Wings. So
he might probably passes that next season.
If he doesn't pass it, he gets pretty close with Pittsburgh next year.
Yeah.
And then on the top is Gordie Howe with the Red Wings at 1,809. 1,809. Crosby currently has 1,674. I think he gets that record. I 100% think he gets that.
As long as he doesn't get traded.
Yeah, and
that's really what it comes down to. Like,
I don't
by the
think
time
he
his career's done, he'll have that many points. I still don't think he's gonna. I think he wants to spend his whole career with the Penguins.
I think he knew that. I think it was pretty clear by the deadline this year that they were not making the playoffs, and last year was the first time in his career where they didn't make the playoffs, if I'm not mistaken. So he knew this was going to be his second year not making the playoffs. The team doesn't look like it's going to get better going forward. He's getting older, which, I mean, you can't count him out, but also he's got to be looking at it like, I can't carry this team from where the minus the minus whatever I said, minus 48 on the season goal differential to a playoff team without any
Yeah, no.
help. And
And they don't have much in the wings coming up either.
I feel like he would have gotten moved this deadline if he was going to get moved. Like,
Yeah,
why would he wait till after these playoffs, another year of not going for it, and then ask for a trade, you know?
exactly.
I,
That's the same thought process I'm on. Like, if he didn't get moved this year, I don't
last
think
or
he's
this
getting
year
moved
was
now.
the time. Now he's kind of in, and I don't think he's really regretting that.
I don't think so.
This will be his one, two. This will be the third year of his career where he is finished with a negative plus minus, assuming he doesn't go positive on his minus 20 from this season. The other two
And that's, I mean,
years,
to really no fault of his own. Like, he's
no.
doing everything he can for the team, but it's
Most
again just
5v5,
not a good Penguins team, and
yeah.
the goaltending hasn't been there.
Yeah, like you said, leading or tied for lead in the NHL for 5v5 points. Like, yeah, they're getting scored on a crap ton. Like, they just don't got a lot of defense or goaltending or even really offensive depth over there. Just
Yeah,
not well put together because they just kept trying to keep it going for Crosby specifically. So they kept staving off the rebuild. But the only 3 years that he's finished a minus were his rookie year. He was a -1 with 102 points as a rookie, coming out of a dead puck era. Nuts. And then in 1920, the 2019-2020 season, he only played 41 games, but he was a -8. But yeah, he is still such a
he's still
beast.
getting it done. He's still getting it done, and again, with Draisaitl injured, Crosby's probably going to get at least 1-5 point during that time, so he'll be top of the league for at least a couple days or two. So, and again, at 37, it's just incredible what Crosby's continued to be able to do, and again, just not slowing down.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so hard to pinpoint with him when he'd retire. Like he could
Whenever
retire.
he wants to.
Yeah, like he could retire next season, or he could be like, "No, I want to play for 6 more years." And like
Yeah,
I fully believe that he would still be at least a 50-point player in 6 years. If he's playing at 43 years
I
old,
think so. Yeah,
he's still putting up 50 points. But yeah, it really depends if he wants to.
depends on what. Yeah, it really just comes down to what does Crosby want to do. If you want to rattle off this New Jersey news here, while I prep my argument here.
Your argument for the New Jersey Devil dues?
No.
Oh, okay. That was going to be a weird one to have some sort of argument with, because
Well, my
that
argument
is.
would just be they get swept round one.
Oh, fair enough.
I
Jesper
don't think Nate
Bratt.
will disagree.
Jesper Bratt broke the Devils' single season franchise record for most assists in a season with 61. I would just like to double check and see if he has got any more since I put that in 1 or 2 days ago.
It
He
would
has
just be the game tonight.
62.
You got one tonight against Vancouver.
Yeah, so he extended
There we go.
it a little
Add it.
bit. That feels that like not a huge number, but like 61 points isn't crazy. But like 61 assists is pretty damn good. And it's not like they've had a lot of super high octane playmakers in their org before, but I kind of imagine once he puts together a full healthy season, there's a good chance Jack Hughes will take that from him. But Jesper Bratt, man, he's one of the most underrated guys in this league. I think
Yeah.
people think of him as like he's a good top 6 player. I don't think a lot of people think of him as the elite talent he is.
Yeah, he doesn't get talked about near enough as he should for what he's been doing over the last couple years.
But that's
I think a big part of it. It was weird because like, and maybe it's just because we're part of the viewership and the fans that like really focus on players, and we're like, oh, for doing this, we're always focusing on everything around the league. It was it was shocking how many people during the Four Nations were like, "Man, Jesper Bratt's like so good. Like, where did this come from?" It's like he's been doing this for a couple of years. Like, it's not like he just turned it on for the Four Nations. Like, he's been this, elite first liner for the last how many seasons now with New Jersey. Like, but he's slowly starting to get more and more of the respect and credit that he deserves.
Yeah, and especially with Jack Hughes out right now, but it's completely well deserved. I'm trying to load this page. StatMuse is having a moment. I'm trying to see who he passed. I want to see if it was Scott Stevens. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Scott Stevens, you just lost a record, buddy. I assume he still has quite a few with the Devils, so he's probably doing just fine.
Yeah, he probably doesn't give two shits.
Most headshots by a Devils player in the season.
Yeah. So that kind of, covers most of, like, there really wasn't much news over the weekend.
There was not.
But I have more ammunition for my argument.
Sorry. I have one other thing to say. I need to correct myself from our last episode, where I talked about Kiefer Sherwood. I talked about Kiefer Sherwood being the all-time franchise leader for hits in a season with the Canucks. That I believe that actually is true because the last record was a Canucks player. However, the record he broke was actually NHL wide. Since they've started recording hits, he actually broke the record for the most hits in a season league wide since they've started recording it in, I want to say, 08, 09. So it was obviously a franchise record, but it was also the league record. So I just wanted to do right by Kiefer Sherwood on that part. Because
fair enough. It's
setting a league-wide record, like setting a league-wide record at, like, I think he did it in 70 games played, like, and then he's like going out there laying 10 hits a night still. Like, he's gonna absolutely demolish that record.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And it's one of those ones that probably doesn't get passed for some time because, again, like, you just look at how many games he, over the weekend, the last two Canucks games, like, he went 12 hits and then 10 hits, or 10 and 12. Like, the amount of double-digit hit games he's putting up is what did he do tonight against New Jersey? Let me just see here. You're sure 5 hits. So, like,
oh, what a slow night.
27 hits in his last 3 games. Like, that's just nuts.
That's so goofy, man. And, like, he might, I mean, who knows? Maybe this is just him now. Like, maybe he'll just do this going forward. Like,
well, maybe. I mean, it's
maybe
working for him.
Maybe next year he breaks it again.
He's having a career year in points, goals. Yeah. But yeah, maybe this is just his game now. Just go out there and lay the body.
Currently at an even 400.
Goals, 40 points. Like, that's solid. That's a great guy to have.
Yeah, looking at a lot of the points, like, I'm looking at a lot of the most hits in an NHL season that since it's been recorded. All of these guys are like 14 points, 14 points, 14 points, 9 points, 3 points. Sherwood this year has 15 goals for 29 points. And the season's not over. Like, also, way less penalty minutes. 31 penalty minutes. The rest of these guys, 87, 98, 114, 121, 142, 157, 154. Like, he's somehow doing it cleanly as well, which is real impressive.
So kind of I as always, I have something planned for the end here, a little fun thing to mess with your brain, mess with the listeners' brains, but
mess me up.
I got some award talks, stuff revolving around awards that I want to put out there. So anyone who's been listening, Braden's been listening to this for the longest time. I have said, if the Calgary Flames make the playoffs, not only should Dustin Wolf get the Calder, even if they don't make the playoffs, I think I would still give him the Calder. But if they make the playoffs, I've been throwing his name out there for potentially winning the Hart Trophy.
So were
And I
you
have more
actually arguing
ammunition.
for the Hart, or were you arguing for if they did it by the definition? Are you still on that, or are you saying now he should just straight up win
Well, I mean,
what we know
I'm
is
just
the
going
Hart?
with it based off definition because I'm always just on the
Okay.
belief of like,
Okay.
if they said that's what the award is, let's do it that way, right? But obviously we know that the league doesn't.
Well, then why doesn't
But-
John Cooper have a Jack Adams? It's a different argument.
What team went nuts that year? Oh, was it the Islanders?
Yeah, I believe
Yeah,
it was Barry Trotz won it.
Barry Trotz, and that was impressive.
Yeah, I mean,
But
yeah, he showed up on a new
that's-
team that was not very good, and he turned it around and made them a playoff
Well, and that was the
contender.
year when they lost
Tavares.
Tavares too, yeah. But I have ammunition now for that Dustin Wolf argument. Who is the last goalie to win the Calder? Steve Mason.
Steve
in
Mason.
2009.
His stats are
A really bad Columbus Blue
stats are
Jackets
unreal.
team, which they were in the Western Conference, which is still weird to think about, but the Blue Jackets were a Western Conference team at one point. They made the playoffs. They did get swept round one. I believe by so it was the Detroit Red Wings who lost in Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Final to Sidney Crosby. So no shame there. So Steve Mason won the Calder and great rookie year, got Columbus into the playoffs. He finished 4th in Hart voting.
Really?
Yes. And it just
Okay.
going to, I had it here.
That's
the year that Ovechkin won it. Ovechkin votes 1,264, Malkin 787, Datsuk 404, and then Steve Mason 266. So quite a bit behind Ovechkin, like almost 1,000.
Yeah.
But he was 4th.
I will say
goaltender did finish 4th in.
He was a lot better than Wolf's been, and that's not a knock on Wolf.
But again, like that's so different, right? We're talking about how when we talk about goalies, the average stats are way worse than they were back then.
Sure, they were definitely worse.
I'm just going off the basis of.
I'm just looking at
rookie
10 shutouts is so goofy. I look at double-digit shutouts and I'm just like, what the hell, man? That's so crazy. I can't believe he didn't become a star in this league for years. Like, how did he peak so hard?
Right-handed catching goalie too, worth noting.
Ooh.
But I just wanted to put that out there because for the people that have said I'm wrong and Wolf won't get any consideration, they've done it before. There's nothing to say that they won't do it again. But again, it is all based on the premise that Calgary needs to make the playoffs. If Calgary doesn't make the playoffs, you don't give Wolf a single Hart vote.
You know what?
Like,
I'll say I disagree with that. I disagree with that because you get 1 to 5.
It's got to go to.
You could give him a 4th or 5th place vote.
Yeah, but I feel like at that point I think you've already got a couple locked up. Like everybody's going to be going with. I think Draisaitl, Hellebuck, and
McKinnon
for sure.
People are saying McKinnon, but like, man, like, is McKinnon even having the best season on his team? Man, Makar's having a good year.
McKinnon's leading the league in points, so it's like if he finishes there, he's going to get.
It's hard to discredit.
Makar's probably going to get some because I think he's probably going to hit 30 goals as a defenseman, which hasn't been done since Mike.
Would that be Mike Green? I think Mike Green had like 33, 34. Like he had a lot that year.
And then there's still, if St. Louis makes it, there's probably going to be some St. Louis guys getting the nod there. If Columbus makes it, Werenski's probably going to rack up quite a few.
I think Werenski would. I don't think the Blues, any one of them would really. Like I feel like they really get it done by committee a lot.
Yeah, but there's always those few guys that'll vote for.
That's fair. Yeah,
Binnington because of how good he was down the stretch. Like we saw last year with Charlie Lindgren type of thing, right?
That's fair.
I'm not saying Wolf shouldn't, but I'm saying like,
no, I hate the premise of
I wouldn't give him at that point.
Because I hate the premise of playoff teams. I don't care. See, that's the exact thing I'm saying. I don't care about that, man. Like that doesn't matter. You're still,
It does for, league MVP, right?
uh, uh, but it shouldn't. It's if you're the best player in the league, if McDavid put up 180 points and his team missed the playoffs, he's still the
Okay, but
MVP.
that's a little bit different. No one's
Okay,
dropping
but where's the
that on him.
where's the line, right? And I'm not saying he should get first place votes,
I think at least 100.
even if they make the playoffs, but even
I
if they
think
miss
at least
a
100
fourth, a
points from
fifth,
a playoff team. Like you have to put
that's
up like
fair.
absurdly good numbers because
Yeah,
you're on a bad team if you miss the playoffs. Like you got to have
yeah.
bare minimum to even get the conversation going. You got to be point per game, and it's got to be
Oh, easy point per game.
got to be
Probably
like
a
at least
90.
70, 75 games played and a point per game or higher.
Yeah.
Like if you're down there like, oh, I had 75 points in 60 games, like, nah, you ain't.
Yeah, at that point,
You
it's
ain't in the
like
conversation.
people are like, you'd be better on a better team for sure, but like, yeah, but like, you always hear the argument of like, if this team make the playoffs, like, if if Quinn Hughes didn't get injured at all in 2025 and he kept up his pace and played that well, maybe even increased it a little, if his
I think
team still missed out on the
would be in the
playoffs, I think he should
Canucks would
still be in a solid running for the Hart.
Canucks would be solidly in a playoff spot, though, I think.
Probably, but say the goalie
For
goes down.
argument's sake.
Yeah, for the argument.
Sake, if they're not. I mean, yeah, because at that point, he would have.
Generally, it's not a thing that comes up too much because the best players are on those teams.
He'd be at 95.
He'd be close.
Like he'd be at least at 90 points if he didn't miss time.
And like, if that's the case, I mean, what does that put him? Is that fourth in the league in points?
Yeah, because 67 points.
I'm pretty sure McDavid's fourth with like 90.
If he played all 82 games, he'd have 98 points.
Oh, okay, that would be by the end of the year. Still,
but, I mean,
great defensive metrics and 98 points as a defenseman. Like Norris lock, and like even if his team doesn't make the playoffs, it's like, man, like I know they didn't make the playoffs, but the team would still be the worst off around the league if you took him away.
Yeah. Actually, let me check something here.
I get why people argue for the playoffs thing with MVP because, yeah, generally, if you have players of that, number one in the league that year talent, you're usually making the playoffs. But
yeah,
in some cases, guys are really shafted, and if they have that game breaking talent and they're backing it up with their play and their team just freaking blows it.
So
I like to see them get rewarded a bit.
In the 2022 because this is the most prime perfect example of the argument you're trying to make here. The 2022-23 season, that was the year when McDavid got robbed of the unanimous Hart with 195 first place votes and the 1/5 place vote.
That guy should not be allowed to vote on awards or elections for the rest of his life.
Yeah. Erik Karlsson put up 100 points, well, over 100 points as a defenseman, 101 points on a very bad San Jose team. He didn't get a first place vote, second, third. He did get 3 fourth place votes and 5 fifth place votes.
Okay, so
he got
some
votes, but he was 15th. And that's 100 points from a defenseman.
Yeah. But he also wasn't, his defensive numbers were pretty rough. And that's because the team leaned on him to be the offensive guy from the blue line. Like his job wasn't to be a defensive defenseman.
And I'm not saying like if you're not on a playoff team, like you shouldn't get votes, but I'm saying like realistically, like you're not gonna win. That's just the way that it goes. They always give it to the best players in the league, and usually all those best players are on playoff teams. And if they got to decide like, oh, these two guys are both really good, well, this guy made the playoffs, this guy didn't, so we're going to go with the playoff guy type of thing.
I feel like other stuff should come up before that argument, though. Like there should be more tiebreakers before that.
I would agree.
Yeah. Not necessarily arguing with you, just like arguing into the universe. At the majority of people, I think, are of the opinion that the Hart Trophy winner should be on a playoff team. It's
And for
a
me,
pretty
it's just
common
going
sentiment.
off of because I always just believe in the heart. Like, they vote on just best player, but I always want to believe that. And maybe one day it'll get there of it actually being the player most valuable to their team. But I doubt we're ever going to get that. I don't think we're lucky enough.
Let me ask you something. Which would you prefer? They actually call it like it is and start doing that, or they change the wording and say given to the best player in the league? Because that's what I would prefer personally.
Give it to best player in the league.
Yeah,
don't say most valuable to their team because they literally just vote on best player in the league.
Yeah, or just say the league MVP because even that kind of says to me the best, the best player. Like,
league MVP. Like, I'm totally fine.
Not
with that.
Most valuable to their team. Like, I get what they were going with for it, but I don't know. Maybe it's everyone else's perception of it that just kind of changed, but it doesn't feel like that's what it is.
Mm-hmm. But the main core of this awards talk is I wanted to pitch some award ideas to you. We talked a couple months ago. We were talking about how you have the Norris for that always just goes to the best offensive defense. We talked about the league bringing in a award for the best defensive defenseman, highlighting those guys that are blocking all the shots and playing the shutdown minutes against other teams' top lines. And for the people out there that say, "Oh, more awards just waters them down," shut up. Awards are categorized for individual things. It doesn't water down by having more.
Yeah, I'm sure the guy who gets gold in the Olympics at pole vaulting is really upset how many swimming medals there are. Like, no, no.
If there's an award for best category for a certain thing, doesn't matter how many others there are. If that's one category that's focusing on one thing.
It would be annoying if they started getting to the point where they're like, for the second best player gets this award. Now we're stretching it. But as long as we're giving it to the best of the category, I think we're still cruising.
Yeah. And so I have two award ideas here. And this first one is directly just a straight up copy and paste from the NFL. And that is Comeback Player of the Year. And that is not to be confused with the Bill Masterton, because I think you can keep the Bill Masterton as, the player that returns from injury or this and this. But like Comeback Player of the Year can be defined as anything. It can be a guy that, missed an entire year due to injury and then comes back and is playing really well. It can be a player that, played all of the previous season, but was just really bad. And then they come back and return to form type of thing.
Right.
Which I think I would love that. And
I absolutely love it.
If you had to pick someone, if they did do a comeback player,
I've
got a prime example.
I've already got a couple of names as soon as you said it. One that immediately jumps to mind for me is Jonathan Huberdeau.
That's who I've written down. He's like the prime example of like what the award would be based on.
Yeah. He is a great example, but I don't know if he'd win it because Pierre-Luc Dubois was looked upon really badly last year, and he's been great.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? Is like you get these guys in
both guys in that trade, honestly,
are not gonna,
Darcy Kemper
not going to win awards, right, for anything else, but something like this, like it would be awesome. And I like what the Bill Masterton is, but we've talked about it before. It's kind of weird to like compare tragedies that players have gone through. Type of thing. Like it's weird to be like, oh, mine was worse than yours. It's like
this guy, could you imagine if Landeskog comes back from his injury and has a great playoffs? Okay, cool. Let's all vote on the finalists. We got Sean Monahan representing what happened with Johnny Gaudreau, and we have Gabriel Landeskog. How could you begin to have that conversation out loud with anybody? Yes, it just doesn't feel
the
right.
award, but again, what
the spirit is in the right place.
Every team nominates someone. It should just be all 32 guys get it.
Yeah,
they get to share it because it's just so weird to compare stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then the other one I had, and I really like this one because I think it just incentivizes players to continue to grow and get better, and that is the most improved player, and that is basically just who whose game improved the most from the previous year.
I really like that as well. And you know
And I
what?
think a
I
prime
got some.
example of it. Actually, I'll you go first again because you might have the same guy as me again here.
I feel like there's a good chance of it. Alexi Protas.
That's exactly who I have, Alexi
Yeah.
Protas.
Yeah.
Last year, 78 games, 6 goals. He has 29 already this year in 70. 29 points last year, 63 this year. He's almost a 30-goal guy.
All
And at
5v5.
63 points,
Or at least.
he's averaging 16 and a half minutes time on ice per game.
He's not even playing that much.
So he's playing like second, third line minutes with some penalty kill time, no power play time.
Yeah, we have
And he's
already
putting
talked
up
about how he
points like
doesn't
that.
get on the power play, and he's putting up those numbers.
Like he's got 1 power play point, no power play goals, 2 shorthanded goals, and the numbers he's putting up. And he's a plus 42. That leads the league by 6 right now. Oh, Pierre-Luc Dubois is actually tied for third at 35.
Like,
I think those would be two just great awards to add in, like just to highlight, guys that maybe had a rough year last year and maybe on a new team or even on the same team, maybe there's a fire lit under them and they're producing, or a guy that played really bad, like Dubois gets basically dumped from his team, goes to another team and is thriving and looking the best.
which
been.
time? Like,
And just highlighting the guys of, you were even a Kiefer Sherwood. You're looked at as a fourth line guy, and all of a sudden you're essential to your team, basically, based on how much you hit, the penalty kill role you play, the points you're putting up. Like, it's just fun to highlight those guys that, people talk about a bit and like, oh, they're having a good year, but giving them some big recognition type of thing.
Yeah, I completely agree. And if anything else, just like it's fun having these awards. It's fun to see who wins them. Like, it's not for the players, but also for the fans. It's just cool. Like, this isn't the WWE. We're not getting to a point. We're not, at least anytime soon, we're not getting to a point where we're like, there's too many awards. It's watering stuff down. Like, that's just not how it is.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that would be incredibly fun. Just talking about this has made me think of another award, which it kind of already exists, except it's just dog shit in its current form. I would love to see it's truly dog shit. It's the Mark Messier Leadership Award. One guy,
fuck that award.
Some random piece of shit gets to vote. I mean, not random. He's Mark Messier, but this single dude
either.
But he,
I mean, actually, the way he kind of gives out the award, the way he does it,
the way he screwed over Vancouver, a little bit. But like
Did he give it to Jacob Trouba?
Yeah, he gave it to Trouba.
No disrespect to Trouba, like he is a great leader, and the stuff he does off the ice incredible. But how can you give the leadership award to a guy that constantly was like just elbowing people right in the jaw?
Yeah.
Like, just over and over, like,
and then got forced out of his team.
Like, how can you say that's the best leader in the league? The guy that was purposely headshotting people, like,
yeah,
like, might just fucking give it to Matt Rempe this year.
I might as well. Like, I would just like to see a leadership award like that, but it's voted on by the players. Nobody's gonna know more than the players unless they want to give it to the coaches. If they give the coaches the vote. But it's either players or coaches, maybe both. I think
you do either coaches or GMs. Probably more likely coaches.
I feel like the GMs are just removed enough that, like, what's fucking, what's Jim Rutherford gonna know about Braden Shen over in Buffalo or something, right? Or in St. Louis.
I think coaches is the way to go, because with players,
I think so.
Really, and first of all, I think players are more likely to, they'd have to put maybe a rule of like, oh, you can't vote for a guy on your team or something, and like, do you pull every player? Whereas I feel like you just do the 32 coaches, because not only are they in the locker room with their guys and whatnot, they're more focused on the overall part of the game, whereas like the players are kind of just focusing on their team and scoring goals and winning. But the coaches are kind of like seeing all this stuff with like players on the other team and, the way that they rally their guys and what they do on the ice. So I feel like the coaches are a little bit better
that makes sense.
Determine that. Not to say like the players would pick a bad one, but I feel like the coaches are just have a little bit more pulse on kind of seeing all of that kind of stuff.
That's
for.
fair. Yeah, I don't think they would do all players. If they did players, I think they would do maybe the captains of each team all get a vote, and you can't vote for yourself. Or, maybe, and then for teams that don't have a captain, maybe you go longest tenured player gets a vote. But
Yeah.
yeah, I feel like coaches is probably the way to go. And
I also feel like with
I think that
players,
would
if
be
you
really
ask
cool.
them, like if the players don't really know, you're most likely just gonna say like Sidney Crosby, Connor McDavid. Like you're just gonna throw out the most obvious one type of thing. Because you don't really know what's going on with the other team. So it's like, oh, who's the best leader? Like you couldn't go wrong by just saying Sidney Crosby, right?
But there's not really an issue with that, right?
No,
Bobby Orr
absolutely
wins
not.
7 Norrises in a row, and the 8th year, everyone was like, "Well, fuck, he's still just clearly the best, right?"
No, I'm saying with like coaches, maybe you get something of like maybe like a Nick Suzuki type guy.
Radko Gudas.
Or some. Actually, that's a good shout. Jacob Trouba. Fuck.
Gudas forcing Trouba down the lineup.
Man. It's such a dumb award, the Mark Messier Leadership Award.
Yeah.
It's just basically who's the captain of the Rangers, who's dishing out the most headshots. Like,
I think before it was Trouba, I think Stamkos won it. Like, I do think he's given it out to some other guys, but like, it really
I
is
just lost all
clearly
respect
just
for when Trouba got
he just
it, man. And again,
I lost
it's not
respect
that
for it way
dislike
before
Trouba,
then.
but
Like,
it was a weird pick.
Dude, it's just one guy, man. Like,
Yeah.
I'm struggling to think of anyone other than like a guy like Sidney Crosby. Like, if it was Crosby picking it and he was still around the league doing stuff, I'd be like, all right, I respect Crosby's decision. Let's see who he thinks is the guy. Mark Messier, that guy took a lot of bullshit penalties, hurt a lot of careers, did a lot of backstage politicking, and fucked over some franchises. Like, he's not a guy that I want to be like, he's the single authority on who has leadership.
Yeah, like why not just have Gretzky or Lemieux? Fuck,
Yeah,
honestly, when Crosby retires, just have it be Crosby that picks it.
Genuinely, like, fuck, give it to Yzerman. When people talk about one of the best captains in history, they don't go to Gretzky right away. A lot of people go to Yzerman, Sakic, and Crosby. Those guys.
Yeah.
So
But it might be weird having a guy that's a GM. He's got his hands full trying to get Detroit back into the playoffs.
All he's got to do is pick one fucking guy.
I mean, that is true.
And you know he's not going to give it to one of his guys unless they damn well earn it.
Yeah.
You don't hand out freebies.
Nope. Not in this league. To wrap this episode up, we're going to go back to something we had a little bit of fun with last week. I've got another NHL categories here for you. If you didn't listen to last episode, you're unfamiliar with this new game we got here. It's as simple as basically I either have 5 teams, and that's just based on overall team stuff, not individual players on the team, or like this one, 5 individual players, and there is a certain theme between 4 of them, and Brain has to figure out what that theme is, and then who the players that doesn't fit into that category. And so today I have 5 players for you.
All right. I am currently 0 for 1 on this one. I've done really well on a lot of these games.
You got half a point last time.
Oh, I did get half a point because I figured out
the category right. You didn't get the team right though.
I picked Vegas over Buffalo to have a president's trophy. I stand by it. That's what the sane person would have answered.
But you ready for your 5 players?
I am.
You have Braden Point of the Tampa Bay Lightning, Dylan Gunther of the Utah Hockey Club still, William Nylander of the Toronto Maple Leafs, Logan Thompson of the Washington Capitals, and Taylor Hall, the newest member of the Carolina Hurricanes.
Okay, well, that is very rude because there's one goalie in there.
Yeah.
And so, I feel like I would, it's one of those things where, I would be correct in saying he's the odd man out. He's a goaltender. But incredibly good chance that is not what you're thinking.
Taylor Hall had a hat trick the other night as well. Just want to put that out there. Good for Taylor Hall.
Yeah, good for him, man.
And
He's
same as
been
last
doing it.
episode, if you hit a wall and you're stumped, you do get one small little hint. You can use it anytime.
I wonder what the odds are your hint
But you
is
lose
it's
cool
not
guy
that
points.
he's a goalie.
You lose
I would
cool
lose
guy points if you use it.
I would lose a bit of my street cred, which honestly is like the only reason I'm here.
It's the most important thing.
Yeah, I defy you to name something more important than street cred. But
Mark Messier Leadership Award.
yeah, fair. All right.
That boosts your street cred.
All right, so we have Point, Nylander, Logan Thompson, Dylan Genther, and who's the last player?
Taylor Hall.
And Hall. Right, the hat trick king. This is
thought process here. You can throw out all your different speculations.
I mean, that's a tough one because Genther is not as much of a scorer as the other guys. Hall's won a Hart Trophy. Thompson's a goalie, which makes it very hard to think about what like. Can I burn my hint to ask if it's one player being a goalie?
I can't tell you. It's got nothing to do with just like, oh, it's Logan Thompson because he's like
because he doesn't.
The others aren't. Yeah, that doesn't.
Yeah. Okay. Players who average less than 50 minutes of time on ice.
Taylor Hall, actually, one of like the prime examples of when the Hart was given out, to most valuable to their team, when he kind of drug that New Jersey team to the playoffs.
Yeah, really did.
And you know what? Stomped on by because they got wiped in the playoffs.
I'm not even sure.
Oh, I think it was Tampa actually.
Oh hell yeah!
I think it was Tampa actually that they wiped them.
Oh, maybe that's it. Maybe Point's the odd man out. Being destroyed by Tampa in the playoffs. Nylander, Hall. I don't know about Genther. I don't know if he's been in the playoffs before. Okay. So Hall has won the Hart, which means he was in the top 3 for it. Braden Point was a finalist for the Lady Byng 1 or 2 years ago. So he's been a finalist. Did Dylan Genther, was he a finalist for the Calder or something? Was Logan Thompson? Nylander. Has Nylander ever been a finalist? If it was for probably the Calder. It doesn't ring any bells, but that's long enough that I don't think I would have figured that out. There's a decent chance that it's that. Logan Hall, Nylander, Point, they all played in the East, but Hall's played in both. Genther and Hall have both played in Arizona, but at least both Point and Nylander also have not. This is a tough one. Point, Thompson, Genther, Hall, I believe, are all Canadian. And Nylander is Swedish. So it might just be that Nylander's the odd one out as he's not Canadian. Would it be as easy as that? Is Dylan Genther, is he Canadian?
He is.
He is Canadian.
He's a Canadian boy. Scored that huge gold medal game-winning goal in the World Juniors.
Oh, right. Good for him.
People forget about that, though, because it was Bedard that dominated that whole tournament.
Yeah.
But it's like Genther did. He got the biggest goal of the tournament.
Oh, Genther. Genther's an Alberta boy, isn't he? Genther's an Alberta boy, isn't he? And I know Point is from Calgary, and I know William Nylander is from Calgary. Oh God, I think Logan Thompson's from Calgary as well. I know Aiden Hill was, when Vegas won. I kind of think both their goalies were from Calgary. Could it be that Hall
Sweden
is
have
the
a
odd man
Calgary?
out as not a Calgary guy?
Aiden Hill is Comox, BC.
Ah, rip.
Doesn't have anything
Well,
to do with this. I was just curious because I
yeah.
didn't know if Aiden Hill was or
Well,
not.
he'd probably be better if he grew up in Calgary. You know what?
Fuck, he's got a cup. He's got a
Yeah.
cup.
Yeah, one cup. That's it.
Well, that's true. That's true. Only one. Only one.
Is Genther, is it an Alberta thing or is it a Calgary thing? I don't know. I kind of think he's just Alberta. I kind of feel like he's from Edmonton. I kind of want to lock in that Hall is the odd man out as he is not from Alberta. I'm
Locking it in.
going to lock that in. That's pretty specific.
He didn't use the hint. He didn't use the hint.
I need my
Everybody
street
at
cred.
home, lock in your final answers. So you are going with Taylor Hall is the odd man out due to the rest of the crew being Alberta boys.
Yes. Taylor Hall,
Braden,
Canadian. I do not know where in Canada he's from.
Braden Point, Calgary boy. William Nylander, Calgary, Alberta boy. Represents Sweden, but born in Calgary.
Born
Dylan
and raised.
Genther, born in Edmonton, Alberta boy.
It is Edmonton. Okay.
Logan Thompson, born in Calgary, Alberta. And Taylor
Oh,
Hall, Calgary, Alberta boy.
Oh, I was on it.
Dylan Gunther,
Genther was the odd man out, not being from Calgary. He was from Edmonton.
Yeah.
I just assumed Hall was. I knew he was Canadian. I just assumed it was fucking Mississauga, Toronto, or some shit. Scarborough. Oh,
It's gonna fit that vibe.
Again, really close.
You were right in there. I think Taylor Hall actually did play in the OHL. I think he went over to Ontario. Yeah, he did. Windsor Spitfires.
Oh, you piece.
So Alberta boy, but he went over to the OHL. So you technically didn't get either one right, but like you were on the right track. You were right in there.
I would coach his challenge for half a point for Alberta being the criteria when it's actually Calgary. That's pretty close.
I actually would give you half a point, yeah. Because like you're like right, you were like right in there. Like basically you just didn't say Calgary. If you added the word Calgary,
once I knew
right in there.
Once I knew that 3 of them were from Calgary, I should have realized that Calgary was it. I probably still would have guessed Genther was from Calgary and said Hall's the odd man out, but
yeah, when Taylor Hall got drafted to Edmonton, that didn't make Flames fans happy seeing a Calgary boy go to Edmonton.
Yeah, I guess first overall. Going
I would give you half a point. Like you were right in there. You were just circling around it. So I didn't
lose any of my street cred. So
it is true. You kept 100% of your street cred on that one. So I do got to give you props.
That's important.
But I believe
that was good. That was a good one.
This episode we
do you have
big games around the league, but there wasn't.
Do you have a specific way you put those together, or do you just kind of come up with an idea and pick guys?
Yeah, pretty much.
Just like looking at guys trying to connect some dots.
Pretty much. And then you just start looking around at some players, and then I'm like trying to find like similarities between some players. I'm like, all right, well, this guy. Okay, what can I do with these guys? Oh, and then
you just pick the 5th guy who's not included and try and make him close.
Exactly. Yeah, I wanted him to be like I wanted to make sure it was like 5 Alberta guys, but I just have the one B. Right. Actually, I tried to find
that was tricky.
A Red Deer guy, but there's like no active guys.
Cool.
I think basically, if you want to be an active NHL player from Alberta, it's basically Calgary and Edmonton for the most part.
Yeah, there's not a lot of them from Rockyford. It's not a lot of people in general from Rockyford. The standard stallion.
But I do believe that wraps up everything for this episode. Hopefully, we'll have a bit more news around the league come Friday later this week. Maybe the standings will have changed a bit. We can do another review of the standings as NHL season's getting close to wrapping up. Most teams are kind of around that 10-11 game mark remaining. So maybe more teams will be eliminated. More teams will be clinched. Nashville still isn't technically eliminated. Could go on a run here.
Huge run.
If you want to talk hockey, you want to join in on the conversations, make sure to check out the links there down in the description across all episodes, across all platforms. Braden, final thoughts.
Dylan Genther should have been born in Calgary, as Aiden Hill as well. They'd both be part of a dynasty at this point.
I think that happens one day when they put in that. Are they still doing that? Like subway that gets you from Calgary to Edmonton in like 30 minutes.
Oh, I'm not
sure.
sure
Like
if
a Calgary resident in Edmonton, and like you go into labor, and it's like, oh, we got to hop on the train. We got to get back to Calgary. I'm not having my kid be born in fucking Edmonton, or vice versa. You're from Edmonton, you're in Calgary. Like, we can't do it. We gotta brave it. Then the train breaks down halfway, and your kid's born in Red Deer. Tough.
Let's do a quick Google. Is that still going?
I don't know. I heard that shit like 5 years ago or something.
It was definitely real.
You could get to West Edmonton Mall in 30 minutes. Okay, how long do I have to wait? It was like 10 years. You got to wait for that. Oh, okay. My body will be like broken by then. I won't be able to handle the water slides.
The water slides are crazy.
I won't be man enough.
It looks like it is still in the works. It's just like it's like a 15-year build. Like it's going to take forever. But it looks like it looks at the moment like it's still ongoing with a stop in Red Deer in between. Look at that.
That'll be electric if we get it when it's out and we get a Battle of Alberta.
Dude, the Battle of... Dude, can you imagine the train ride back? It's only a half-hour train ride, so it doesn't outstay its welcome. Imagine the Flames going into Edmonton and winning a game. The train ride back to Calgary, electric. That would be so
Insane.
Good.
That's crazy to think that you could travel to Edmonton for a playoff game, and on like going from Edmonton to Calgary, it'd be quicker probably than leaving the Dome and driving home with traffic. It'd be like the same amount of time.
Probably. I mean, I guess you'd have to get from the Edmonton arena to wherever the train is, but
I guess, yeah.
It would be pretty
Takes you
reasonably
right
quick.
To the front door of Rogers. Drops you off right there.
You could just waltz right in and pay $50 for a beer and a hot dog.
Yeah. I'm sure that one sick bastard who just rubbed your shit all over the Gretzky statue. You see that?
I did not.
Yeah, some guy just like shit in their hand and just wiped it over Gretzky's statue.
Like, did people find it, or did people see the guy do it?
I don't know. I only saw the pictures of like just this shit smeared all over it. I'm like, why, man? Like, who's doing this?
That is pretty funny, though.
How do you do that in public and just like be like, yeah, this is... People are weird, man.
I mean, people are not happy with Gretzky right now.
Oh, yeah, fair. But
he was hanging out in the U.S. team's locker room before the game in Four Nations. Like he was basically cheering for him.
What was he? He was doing a upper decker in their toilets, maybe, or something.
It would be really funny if he came out afterwards and was like, "Guys, you don't get it. I was upper decking them." Holy shit! Everyone's like dunking on him. He's like, "Guys," and he's like trying to get in there and take a picture of it for proof. He's like trying to post it on Twitter, like, "Guys, no, that's clearly a photoshopped upper decker. That's not real."
I mean, it's possible. We never know for sure, but that will wrap up everything for this episode. Once again, hope you guys all enjoyed. And as always, we will see you guys out on the ice later this week.